Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and welcome back to our Sunday night live stream. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, pleased to be joined by the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Bobby Burton, and of course, the newest member of the On Texas Football family who needs no introduction, my man, Jeff Howe, joining us as well. All right, guys, you know how this works. You can throw out any question you want to. Questions, comments, we'll try to address as many of them as we can. Super chats jump to the front of the line so you can interrupt the show at any time. We'll talk about a number of different things, including the coaching vacancy on the 40 acres. We'll also get to some other topics, more macro topics, and congratulations are in order for a number of different sports around Texas right now, because this weekend was a hell of a weekend, gentlemen, for Texas sports. We'll get to that too as well. But first and foremost, how's the weekend going for you, Bobby and Jeff? How's everything?
I liked it. I watched a little basketball this weekend, checked in on a little Texas baseball. I had a full sports weekend the first weekend after the Super Bowl. You know, it's such a letdown after football's really over. You're trying to I'll put it this way. I'm very happy the Texas women's team is very good. It makes this time of year a little bit easier for me to follow a team that I think Texas may have a chance to win a national championship based on what we saw today.
Agree.
Hey, it's a good weekend. They beat Cruella DeVille. I mean, Kim Mulkey. They took it to LSU. And anytime Kim Mulkey loses a basketball game is not a bad day for me. I was at the men's game last night. Really gritty effort. No other way to put it other than that. Trey Johnson's so freaking good, man. He had 32 last night. Jamal Mark had 26. But I've been man, anybody that knows me knows I love college baseball, and the Longhorns are right now tied 2-2 with Oklahoma State up in Arlington. And I'm telling you, Max Ballou, I just saw the TrackMan data on it. How about a 430-foot home run to dead center, exit velo of 110?
Wow.
Nice.
That is what we call a rocket, gentlemen.
That is freakish. And to your point about Kim Mulkey earlier, nice one on that one, Jeff. Shout out! It's first time since January 31st, 2010 that Kim Mulkey leaves the city of Austin with a loss. With a great comeback win for Texas basketball, Texas women's basketball. So Vic Schaefer, he's got those ladies rolling. Also, congratulations are in order. As we said, it was a fantastic weekend overall. Texas men's tennis, they went on to the semis, the championship semis in the national indoor championships. They with a 4-1 win over number 5 Virginia. Texas men's basketball, as we talked about, big win for them. Jeff, you actually tweeted out there was a Sark showing at the basketball game there. But we'll get to that too. They knocked off Kentucky 82-78. Texas baseball with a run rule win over Ole Miss. That was an Old Testament style butt whipping. Even Texas softball got in on it and improved to 10-0 with a couple of wins. So Texas sports right now is rolling, doing really well. And shout out to the Texas women's basketball team, because that is a huge win. Anytime you can take down Kim Mulkey and her squad, big win for Big Schaefer and his squad. All right. Thank you guys for all of your questions. We'll try to get to them. Like I said, throw them out there, as many of them as you can. Can I guys ask you a question before we get started? Because I think this is, of course, related to Texas, because I think it's more of a macro topic, and we'll get to the coaching vacancy, of course, on the 40 acres at the running back position. We'll talk about that coming up. Also, Pro Football Focus has a ranking of the best returning quarterbacks in all of college football. I want to get to that too coming up a little bit later on. And Daniel Jeremiah has a tweet talking about the NFL Combine. There's a historic class at this position, apparently, at the NFL Combine. And of course, the Longhorns are represented there as well. So we'll get to that. Well represented, actually, at this position. And so it reflects kind of what's happening at the NFL Combine on a macro level. But something I saw, guys, and I'm seeing more of it, this reclassification. This is something I had to familiarize myself with reclassification. So basically means that guys who are classified in one class can then decide to reclassify, and then they can be in another class. So if you were in the 27 class, and you can reclassify and be in the 26th class. The first time I remember, didn't Quinn Ewers do this, right? Did Quinn Ewers reclassify? Yeah. Was he one of the first to reclassify?
He's one of the first, Rod, that I remember for sure. And you know, it's interesting what has happened in talking to some people, because Zealous Hicks is that way for this Texas recruiting class. Okay. He was actually supposed to graduate this coming year, but he went ahead and graduated a full year and a half early. And what has happened is online classes, dual enrollment, and AP classes have now allowed students to kind of jump ahead and get more high school credit to graduate early. And so it is a new thing. I will say this: why do it? NIL. I mean, there used to not really be a reason to kind of push forward other than just to accelerate your path.
Yeah.
Now, Quinn Ewers did it for NIL. I think Zealous Hicks did it for NIL. Some other guys have done it for A&M. Took a quarterback this last year that graduated a year early, right? And so it's becoming more and more popular. To your point, the one that just did it is a young man out of DeSoto High School, Booby Feaster, who is a wide receiver. A lot of people have him ranked now in this class in the top 100 in the country, Rod and Jeff. And, that's fair. He says he's going to visit Texas A&M, as well as a couple of others. He doesn't have an official date set, but he just announced that on Friday. Look, I think that it's one of those things that we're going to see more of. I think it may die down perhaps a little when NIL becomes more regulated than it is maybe right now. And maybe NIL is never truly ever regulated like people want it to be or think it should be. And until then, we might still see these people go out early. Summer school is another reason why people can get out early. But Rod, you went to Lamar. You went to Houston Lamar. That was a magnet school back in the day. Yeah. So AP classes, guys getting ahead, girls getting ahead in school. That's kind of a normal thing, and that's where it starts. And then the football follows it, and if they're good enough, they try to push ahead.
Yeah, so I guess there were students ahead. They were ahead of their academic schedule, if you will, when I was there. But there wasn't incentive to leave early, right? And it's I guess it's the same mindset as going into the NFL, Jeff. You want to get to the NFL because the second contract is your big contract. There ain't no second contract in college, but as soon as you start the NIL clock, the better. And I will say this on the other side, though. A lot, and Quinn Ewers is getting. I'm hearing this with Quinn Ewers right now, and strangely enough, a lot of folks saying he has higher upside because of how young he is.
He's only 21.
Yeah, like the upside, a lot of upside because he's so young. So if you do ball out, if you leave early, if you reclassify and come in early, you will kind of get a lot of those gains back on the back end. When you're coming out for the NFL, because like I said, that's a lot. I'm hearing that. I've heard that multiple times from multiple places now, multiple platforms. But Quinn Ewers' upside, he's really, really young. Don't forget he reclassified. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I think, man, Quinn Ewers got to get some props for being one of the first NIL babies. Because he's one of the first to reclassify. It was a big name. One of the first to hit the NIL, kind of get the NIL bag. We got to remember him when we're doing when they're teaching the history classes about NIL. All right, they got to bring Quinn Ewers up in those history books, right, Jeff?
Yeah, I think one thing I always said about Quinn, which I think he was supposed to be by age. I think there was one of those kind of close borderline birthdays where he probably should have been in the 2021 class anyway. But regardless. And when you talk about the upside, Rod, I'll add to that. I think we forget how much high school football Quinn Ewers did not play. You think about it. Played a full sophomore year. His junior year was the pandemic year, and he had that hernia surgery. So he missed a really good chunk. And if you, Bobby, I know you watched some of his junior tape. If you go back to his junior tape, like that state championship game against Westlake, I think that's where, coming back from that hernia surgery, I think that's where some of his bad habits started because – that hernia, he couldn't really use his core to get into throws. So everything he's doing, it's pretty much all shoulders. He's standing flat-footed throwing with nothing but shoulders. Gives you an idea of the kind of arm talent he has. And then what should have been his senior year of high school, he's basically on the practice squad at Ohio State. So the learning curve, I think, was probably steeper than we gave it credit for. And the Royal, not the three of us, but had a pretty steep developmental curve, and I do think there's still some growth left for him at the next level. It's just, is there going to be an organization, Rod, that's patient enough with him to take him as kind of a developmental guy. And Bobby, I'll piggyback what you said about the incentive to go early. It could be a deal as we see more of this, and it's not changing. You know, my wife's in education, and she's talking all the time about, Bobby, exactly what you laid out, the AP classes and dual credit and everything. Kids are just wanting to get to college earlier. I think as when you go to 105 and you start to look at developmental guys, you know, can you get we see this in basketball from time to time. Can you get kind of a late steal in a recruiting cycle where a kid just suddenly decides, yeah, I'm going to graduate early, and he might have been, you know, a top 200 type kid in the next class, but you just happened to get him in this class because he reclassified. So that when you go to 105, that I'm fascinated by how you put a roster together. When Bobby, have they ruled on that? Because it was my understanding.
Not finalized,
yeah. I just don't know if it's 105 fulls or once you get to a certain point, you can do partials or whatever. But I'm fascinated to see when you get to 105 how you put a roster together.
Basically, the idea that they're talking about now, it has not been finally passed, is that if you're on the squad, you're not a walk-on. You're a scholarship. And that goes against the scholarship number that you're putting out towards the team. So that's what they're talking about. And 105 is the temporary number. I don't know if that's going to stick. I don't know if it's going to be one or the other, Jeff. Going back to what you're talking about with Quinn and coming out early, Rod and Jeff, you know, Booby Feaster, who we're talking about, is in play right now at DeSoto. Well, at DeSoto High School 4 years ago, Byron Murphy came out of DeSoto High School, same high school. He had already technically graduated junior college when he graduated high school. That's how many classes he had from a college perspective. He had 60 hours entering the University of Texas. That's phenomenal. Okay. I'm not saying Booby Feaster's on that same path, but it gives you an idea of what they can be on if they want to.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the way they do high school now is just totally different. I just went through it with 2 kids, by the way, that took all kinds of AP class. I mean, it's crazy what they can do. The other thing I want to mention is Jeff kind of parlayed this a little bit in that he talked about how Quinn was on that age line for his year of grade or what have you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Go look, and Moro Ojomo has been in the league now for 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's younger than 3 defensive tackles in this draft.
It's crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so he graduated high school at 16. And so in some ways, Jeff, he's that guy that you talk about. Oh, if he would have waited a year, now he graduated with his regular high school class, but he would have waited a year and, you know, been held back in the 7th grade or something, then there's no telling. Instead of just a top 250 prospect in the country, he could have been a top 50. You know, you just don't know. But my thought process on that is, Jeff, you made mention of, oh, maybe they could just get somebody in at the deadline that might be a top 200. I think that's over. I think that's wishful thinking. If they look like they can play at Texas, there ain't going to be no sneaking them in at the wire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Huddle has kind of changed that game in some ways, and who knows what else. But even to digress even further in this talk, Andre Kojo is a guy who's only a sophomore at Texas, right? Like he's actually a redshirt freshman, but he's a true sophomore. He graduated high school 16, enrolled at Texas. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he's sitting there right now. He's 18, right? 18 or 19, trying to fight for a starting spot at the University of Texas.
Yeah.
So it makes you a prodigy. Like you make sure a prodigy to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Have some patience. Have some patience.
That's amazing. And remember the old football discussion about high school straight to the pros? Like you're getting closer to it. If a guy leaves high school early and then leaves college early, because remember it's basically about how many years removed from high school, you're still getting guys to the league really early, like really young in their careers. And that's happening more and more because you're getting prodigies. You brought up Booby Feaster. He's reclassifying. The running back,
Xavier Crowell. Yeah.
Xavier Crowell, right? He's another guy. Mark, is it Mark Bowman, the tight end?
Yeah, from modern day. Yep.
Yeah, he's one of the best tight ends in the country. Is Texas recruiting all these guys, right? I'm assuming. And then always
you can play. You can play. Is the question.
Yeah.
And then
it's like Bucky Gobble used to say, if you're good enough, you're old enough. It don't matter. Yeah. You're good enough, you're old enough.
Line.
It's a great line. Great line. Stole it from Bucky. I'll give him credit for it. All right, let's thank our friends over at rogueshop.com. That's right, folks. Rogue Shop bringing real plant medicine back to its roots. Make sure you use the promo code. You see it right there on your screen. On Texas, use that special discount code, and you'll get a very special discount from our friends over at rogueshop.com, bringing real plant medicine back to its roots. They have it all, from oils and creams to flour, gummies, and vitamins. Rogueshop.com, and they ship nationwide. So no matter where you are, in this great country of ours, they can get their great product to you, no matter what you're dealing with. Maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's aches and pains like me, all right, just because you're getting old and Father Time is winning against you, or maybe it's just, you're having some sleep deprivation issues, you can't get to sleep. Our friends at Rogue Shop have a variety of different products that can help you with all types of different ailments. So just look them up, rogueshop.com, and don't forget that very special discount code on Texas, so you can get a very special discount from rogueshop.com, bringing real plant medicine back to its roots. Thank you very much to rogueshop.com. All right, I think one of the other big topics, and well, in fact, we got a super chat here, and then we'll get back to the topics. Let's get to the super chat here from Juan. Super chats always jump to the front of the line. Thank you very much, Juan. We appreciate that. Says Ed Bobby, what is the beef in history with Kim Mulkey at Texas? Did she want the job at Texas? With the job at Texas, wasn't interested in her. Thoughts?
I think that I don't know all of it. I'll be honest. I don't know all of it. Some of it comes from the fact that she's always been, at least starting off in her college career, she was at Louisiana Tech, not at Tennessee or at Texas or one of the big name brand. Although Louisiana Tech was as good a basketball program as there was back in the day, I think she's always had that little, I don't want to say Napoleon syndrome, but that's kind of the idea. She's had the chip on her shoulder. When she took the Baylor job, she really killed it out of the gate, just about. And Texas women's basketball was going through somewhat of a lag, I guess is the best way to put it. And there were thoughts at different times that she might be that person, but I think her shenanigans kind of got her out of that running for that, and just wasn't necessarily what Texas wanted. I'm not saying it's right or wrong what Texas decided, but Baylor was a tough pull for her. She ended up going to LSU, I think, when times that her best times at Baylor may have been over at that point.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. And she's a terrific coach. I don't know that she has a beef. I think she just rubs some people at Texas the wrong way. She doesn't mind winning and then talking about it, and I think that's part of it. She's one of those beat you and then talk to you about it a little bit.
Yeah.
CB alluded to it in the chat. A lot of it had to do. Karen Aston was on her staff for a year at Baylor, and there was some back and forth in recruiting. And Rod, what was that? What was that date you mentioned earlier? The last time Texas beat a Kim Mulkey team in Austin.
2010.
Yeah.
2010.
That was around the time, or maybe I think it was a couple years later in Waco, actually. Karen Aston coached Texas team, beat a Kim Mulkey coached Baylor team. Karen Aston in the postgame press conference said something to the effect of, "There's a new sheriff in town." And we can all imagine how Kim took that. I got to when I was covering Baylor, I got to be around Kim for a couple years, and intense is the best way I can describe how Kim Mulkey operates on a day-to-day basis. I mean, you hear what was the Nick Saban motto? Like, it's 4th and 1 every day.
Every day, yeah.
That is how Kim Mulkey ran her basketball program at Baylor, and how I imagine she's running it at LSU. It is, I mean, she still believes in full contact, what the wall practices and toughness, and she's out there. Bobby hit the nail on the head. You got to remember, when she was at Louisiana Tech, she was a very undersized, scrappy, gritty point guard on some good Louisiana Tech teams, and she's kind of carried that over into her coaching career. Her teams take on her personality, which can rub people the wrong way, but trust me when I say this, she absolutely 100% does not care what Gen Pop thinks of her. She's definitely marching to the beat of her own drum.
And to that point, Jeff, about the personality and her being unapologetic, of course, about her personality and disposition. That could be why you're not a fit necessarily at Texas. Like, how many Texas coaches are like that at any sport? That just have that coaches have an edge at Texas. They have an edge. Vic Schaefer's got a hell of an edge. Like it's not sharp. But how many his edge is a little bit different. It doesn't necessarily rub you the wrong way. And so I'm with you on that. Like, she's controversial. Like, the topics about all types of things, macro and micro. Our coaches at Texas, they have an edge, but it's usually about the competition. And Kim Mulkey has an edge about every damn thing. So I just think it's not a fit for Texas. She's fantastic. Those kind of go back to what we talked about recruiting and Jeff Banks's statement about the signs, right? They got to have signs that they're compatible with our culture. If not, they can be really good. And people wonder why we're not recruiting them. It's like, well, they're just not good for us. They're good. It's not good for us.
Yeah, I think the best example I can tell you is, Jim Schlossnagle with the baseball program. Schloss is a much better fit in terms of his personality, how he operates. A lot of Texas fans just kind of looked at the on-field stuff and said, "Oh, we want Tony Vitello." Trust me, you don't want Tony Vitello in your baseball program. I mean, if you do, you got to understand what you're getting into. Yeah. But he's a fit at Tennessee. I don't think his style would have been a fit at Texas. I think Texas hired the perfect fit, getting Jim Schlossnagle. Yep,
fit is big on the 40, no doubt about that. All right, thank you for that, Jeff. All right, matter of fact, before we move on, we brought up Boobie Feaster. I don't know if Bobby heard. Because Jeff, you were on when we had Stevie Lee on, right? And Stevie Lee told us about his connection with Boobie Feaster.
I was just getting ready to jump on when he was telling that story.
Do you know that, Bobby? That his basically Stevie Lee's people were really close with Boobie Feaster's people, and that it's actually a story about the labor and the actual I'm not gonna describe it because I don't want to describe it wrong and it be inaccurate about it, but I believe Stevie Lee's mom helped her while she was in labor at one point.
Deliver Boobie.
Yes. I believe I don't want to misrepresent the story.
While they were living in Shreveport, by the way.
Yes. Yep. It's on. I believe it's just the past Monday. This past Monday's winning drive. Yeah. Go check it out. It's Stevie Lee's on early. It's usually in the first 20, 30 minutes of the show. And he just dropped that bombshell. I was like, oh, yeah, my mom, she called the ambulance at 911 when Boobie's mom was in labor with him. I was like, what? I was like, so if Texas doesn't know that, Bobby, you need to pass that along. That needs to be come on. I need to make sure that the people in charge know about that connection. That is a hell of a connection. Anyway, I just thought about
I think it's awesome because it just shows you how small the world is, man. You know what I mean? It's just awesome stuff like that when we go there.
And that's what recruiting's all about, pretty much, right? Those little connections that you make. Freelance Society. Great to hear from you. Thank you for that, Society. Real journalism, ladies and gentlemen. Go check it out. Worth the follow. Said if Texas likes what they have after spring ball, would you be surprised if they did not sign a wide receiver? All right, guys. What about it? I would say, man, I like signing wide receivers in the transfer portal for Texas because they do so well at it. They're so good at it. But what are you guys' thoughts about what Freelance Society has to say?
Man, I think you got to take one. You can even like what you have and want to get better. Because, look, Ryan Wingo, really, really good prospect, right? He hit a little bit of a wall about halfway through the season. Now, he picked back up later in the year when they needed him more. When Isaiah, he kind of broke through that wall a little bit, in my opinion. But you don't – I think even if Parker Livingstone comes on, even if Jamie French, who we're hearing is doing really well, or Kalik Lockett or Dalen McCutcheon, one of those guys really showed that they're ready, you still want 5 or 6 guys that are ready. You don't want just 4 or 5. I mean, I think you still got to go for one. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, for 2 reasons. I want to add more speed to that room. Number one, not to say that there's slow guys, but I need a speed dynamic, a guy who's a great space playmaker that you can still use, the bubble screens and have kind of the quick game stuff with. And like you said, Bobby, some experience. Just a guy that's been through the college football grind. You know, Ryan Wingo's only done it for a year. DeAndre Moore's your seasoned veteran in that room all of a sudden. So just give me a guy that's been through it a little bit. You know, a guy with top end speed and power conference experience. Yes, I said, even if, and plus we're talking about all this, and I think one of the things that I love what Sark does when he's building a roster, he doesn't leave a lot of things to chance, and I don't think he wants to put all his eggs in one basket in case there is an injury and, oh man, we could have got a wide receiver out of the portal. No, it's a need. Just go get one now if there's a guy in there that you like. So that way, if there is an injury, you know, you can protect against it and it doesn't cause your whole offense to crater.
No, that's a great point, and I agree. I think you should go get a receiver via the transfer portal. CJ Vogel, I love his take. He says take one every year, and the reason I agree with that is it may seem extreme. I think wide receiver is the deepest position in football. At the high school, college, or pro level, I see more decent, pretty good wide receivers at the high school, college, and pro level. They're just everywhere. Everybody's got a really good wide receiver. I'm not saying the elite ones are everywhere, but there are a lot of really good ones out there. And that's why you get so many good ones via the transfer portal. Hey, Silas Bowden came here and couldn't even see the field. Like, how many good ones? What's the guy that went to Nebraska? There was a double-digit touchdown guy from Wyoming. What's his name?
Isaiah Naylor.
Yeah. I mean, I know he got hurt, but you can come here in Texas and disappear on the roster and be a starting wide receiver somewhere else. There's so many good wide receivers out there. So
it's like Rod. It's like the shooting guard position in basketball. The difference between the ones that are elite and the ones that are good is just minuscule.
It's a great point.
That's your. So Sark can scheme anybody open at some level, right?
Yep.
I agree with Jeff in that regard that maybe what they need is a speed guy to accentuate what they already have, because they've got big guys. I mean, with Lockett, French, those both bigger, longer limb guys, joining Livingstone and Wingo, which are definitely both bigger guys. Maybe they need a jet of sorts if they can find one. There may be a couple out there after April. We'll have to see when that takes place.
Shout out to CB here, says happy birthday, Parker Livingstone. Wingo's was yesterday. I was talking about those wide receivers. You know, Jeff, you had a really good piece that you wrote on the site at ontexasfootball.com about explosive plays. And I don't want you to go too deep into all of it because people should go check it out. But I want to ask you guys a question about it, because explosive plays, you basically categorize it 20-plus yard plays, right? 20-plus yard plays from scrimmage. Was the definition of your explosive plays. And I think you basically kind of stated for the second year in a row, you're losing the bulk of your explosivity on offense. Yep. What was it in terms of your numbers that you broke down?
So I'm trying to find it here. So Texas, if you look at Texas 20-yard plays, and it might get kind of skewed because of 16-game season, but no offense in the country had more 20-yard plays from scrimmage than Texas. They had 108. Texas was third in the country in 20-yard gains per game. They were at 6.75. Miami was at 7.62, and Ole Miss was at 7.39. So anyway you slice it, there's one of the most explosive offenses in the country. Your leaders in terms of explosive plays, Matthew Golden with 22, Gunnar Helm with 15, Jaden Blue with 12, and Isaiah Bond with 12. DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo, and Trey Wisner, all of them had 10 each. So basically, just like from 23 to 24, where you lost Jonathan Brooks, Xavier Worthy, Jatavian Sanders, A.D. Mitchell, and Jordan Whittington, second year in a row, you're losing your top four gainers in terms of explosive plays. The difference is, if you look, Rod, at this last year's leaderboard for explosive plays, I broke it down to explosive plays per touch. In other words, how many times are you touching the ball before you rip off an explosive play?
I like that.
Ryan Wingo was as good as anybody on the roster.
Yes.
Wingo was about an explosive play once every 3.4 touches, just a little bit ahead of Isaiah Bond. DeAndre Moore was one every 3.9 touches, which was more than Gunnar Helm. Arch Manning, one every 8.33 touches, which for him is rushing attempts. And that's – look, I know I'm expecting Sark to protect him as much as possible and just not turn him into Bucky Richardson and think you're just going to have this great quarterback run game. That's not what Sark does. But the scrambling ability, those if you rip off a 20-yard run on a scramble, it still counts as an explosive play. So don't discount Arch Manning's legs as giving you that the legitimate explosive play dynamic that you haven't had before.
You know what's interesting though about that? Because we can go a lot of different ways with this thing. Because I want to ask you guys who you think the 5 most explosive players on the roster are going to be next season. But Texas offense was more explosive this year than they were last year. Like they were more when you look at overall. And I wouldn't have thought that just looking at the personnel. Like Matthew Golden led the Power 5 in explosive plays.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like Gunnar Helm was really explosive. Like they didn't seem like they was going to be that explosive when you just look. Like said, don't judge a book by its cover. Because if I told you about Xavier Worthy, fastest man in history of the combine, A.D. Mitchell, J.T. Sanders, Jay Brooks, you know what I mean? You thought, oh man, with Jaden Blue, that offense in 2023 was more explosive, but it wasn't. And even if you look at the accounting for the extra 2 games, it still wasn't more explosive than the one in 2023. Sark's offense sometimes will get weird and quirky that way. Like they're strange that way. And especially with the running game, you thought, because I guess the running game maybe was more explosive. We're talking about 20-plus yard plays here. So the run game may have been more explosive in 2023. But overall, if you're talking about explosive chunk yards or 20-plus yards, you were way more explosive this past season. And that's just crazy to think about because personnel-wise, I'd have said 2023, more explosive players overall.
Let me ask you this. You think Quinn threw the medium and deep ball better in 2024 than 2023? Because I do.
That could be big. That could be big about it.
I thought he connected really well with Golden downfield late. Not great by any stretch. I mean, threw a horrible pick against Arizona State, right? He's late with that ball, but he threw a couple great go balls too to Golden. One against A&M, one against Arizona State. I mean, so I think that Quinn got better this year on those, and that led to it. I also think Sark utilized Jaden Blue really, really well out of the backfield.
That's actually a great point, Bobby. That's a good one.
They didn't do that a year ago with Jonathan Brooks. They did a lot of throwback screen, but they didn't run a lot of wheel routes with Jonathan Brooks. And
then that Texas route they love. Remember that Texas route too? That was
zig
good
inside. Yeah, they did
point.
that. I don't know. I mean, who are the 5 most?
Yeah, who this year? If you had to guess, who gonna be the most five most explosive players? I guess the top 3 are easier, right? Jeff, you just brought up the guys who are returning to that group.
Yeah, Manning, Moore, Wingo. Man, I've got to say Wisner. Every time I watch, there's 2 games that Trey Wisner, I just maybe there should be more. But A&M, I mean, he played like a warrior, dude. I mean, I watched some stuff from that on Friday afternoon. Actually, he played. I mean, he broke off some runs against OU. Those 2 long runs he had broke open that game. So I don't know how you can't put him on one of your more explosive, even though that's not necessarily who he is. I don't know. I feel good about that. But I'll be honest, beyond Wingo, I don't know that I would categorize DeAndre Moore as explosive.
Right.
Had some good plays downfield, but like right now, the one guy I would point to that's going to be on this team that's going to be explosive is Ryan Wingo. Sark will get more involved, but
I think it goes back to something you mentioned earlier, Bobby. I think those are Trey Wisner and DeAndre Moore. They're good enough athletes that if Sark schemes them open, it naturally helps them create separation. So I think the explosive plays are going to be there for both those guys. I think too, Rod, you reminded us about, and Bobby, I know you've been big on what Jaden Blue did last year and how Sark used him. Rod, you're talking about some of the route combinations that they use with the backs. I think we're going to see more of that because, again, I'll go back to something I mentioned, Rod, when you and Jerry and I were talking about tight ends. We're no longer dealing with personnel that Sark has inherited that he's trying to get the most out of. Now you're dealing with guys that he's recruited for specific roles, specific things in mind. So I think as we continue to see that at the running back position, I think as much as Sark values getting running backs involved in the passing game, I think we'll continue to see those guys get involved. Rod, we went years at Texas where Chris Obaniah's 2008 was not only the gold standard for running backs getting the ball in the passing game, but it stuck out like a sore thumb. I mean, your leading receiver at running back, there'd be years where that guy might have had 15 catches, 18 catches, 12 catches, maybe every now and then a guy'd get 20 catches. I think you're looking at where Sark wants to have one, if not a couple running backs that are right around 40 catches.
Yep. No, I used to have the 30-40 club, and I'm going officially the stat is dead. I'm killing the stat. I'm no longer going to keep up with it. A 30-40 club was basically players at Texas who were able to have at least 30 rushes and 40 receptions in the same season. And it was so rare, in fact, that Eric Metcalf did it twice in his career in the 80s, and then Chris Obaniah did it in 2008. Those were the last two guys to have done it in like the last 40 years at Texas. Like that's how rare it was to have a combination of skill set that unique. I believe Jaden Blue and Trey Wisner both hit it, but now you got 16 games now, so a little bit different. That's why I'm going to kill the stat, because otherwise I got to keep up with it through the regular season, and then that's just annoying. Nobody wants to hear that in the regular season. Nobody wants to hear that. So I'm going to kill it because I think both of them got really close to that or already surpassed it, 30-40. But that's how
they had 42 and 42 catch.
Exactly. Now they wouldn't have had that during the regular season, a 12-game or 13-game season, but it just shows you how rare it was. But it also shows you how Sark, he has said it before multiple times. There are multiple coaching clinics where Sark is on video saying it. The most underutilized weapon in the passing game is the running back position. He says it over and over and over and over again. And based on looking at the stats and productivity of the year, Jeff, he truly believes that. His running backs, if you're a running back in Sark's offense, you're going to get the rock in the passing game. You're going to get yourself 30, 40 catches. No question. These are guys that split time and still got 30, 40 catches.
Yeah, Roshan and Bijan were both 30 catch guys.
Yeah, exactly. They were splitting time doing it too. So I just say he really believes that, and he's right about that. If you find a guy like a Bijan or a guy like a Jaden Blue, why not?
Yeah, Bobby, I know you were at your formative years when Eric Metcalf was at Texas. I still maintain that if Eric Metcalf played football today, he'd be, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey. He'd be one of those.
He'd be Jahmyr Gibbs.
He'd be closer to Jahmyr Gibbs than McCaffrey. Eric can never put on that kind of mass that McCaffrey can put on. Now he was rocked up. Don't get me wrong, but he'd be a better kick returner than either of those guys, by the way, or punt returner. I mean, the dude could return. He is one of those often forgotten guys at Texas because he played on some really average football teams in the late 80s at Texas. And I was in school there at the time, and he was all Texas had at a time when, Tony Jones was on that team too.
Yeah.
But Tony Jones was young at that time. And so Eric Metcalf was kind of the only guy that really could do things. And, I feel like I don't know if he would be Alvin Kamara or a slot receiver.
That's true.
I think he's a better receiver than those other guys. He's a natural receiver. What do you have, like 100 catches a couple different years in the NFL as a slot?
Some freaky stuff. He has some free. His stats.
Yeah, he was
way ahead of his time.
Like he's more like Jahmyr Gibbs than either McCaffrey or Kamara, in my opinion. But tremendous player, guys. Tremendous. Thanks for bringing that up, by the way.
Yeah, his stats are crazy. Okay, so his 1995 season, he had 153 targets. This is crazy. He had 153 targets, 104 receptions, 1,189 receiving yards that year.
Not great Cleveland teams, too, by the way.
Yeah, that's basically when they switched on the wire. Like they basically decided, you know what, you're a receiver. And this was like his 7th, 6th, 7th year in the league.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? You're more receiver. Let's just put him in receiver instead of putting him at running back more often. Crazy.
They made him a receiver fairly early in his career in the NFL.
Okay. Yeah, he had 69 targets his 4th year in the league. So that's so he was already trending that direction. You're right, buddy. All right. Whitney says, let's give a shout out to the Longhorns women's basketball team with another top 10 win. Texas men's basketball with a big win yesterday over Kentucky, and our baseball team and softball team with some good wins as well. Yeah, we did that to start the show. Actually, shout out to it was a hell of a weekend. I mean, it was an unbelievable weekend for the tennis. Did we get the tennis team in there too?
Yeah, we didn't mention them.
Mentioned that the men's tennis team showed up. I mean, honestly, it's too many sports doing too well, so we can't give them props constantly. But we do want to make sure we show them some love, because that was a hell of a weekend to start yesterday, and then of course today with the women's basketball team. And Vic Schaefer, guys, I've gotten a chance to speak to Vic Schaefer. You guys got a chance to speak to him on Coffee and Football recently. I think I've interviewed Vic Schaefer maybe 3 times now total. Once on 3rd and Longhorn, I had him. We did them before pregame for one of the football games one time. Man, if I had to pick a coach on the Fort Acres right now to give the best pregame speech or halftime speech, I'm picking Vic Schaefer.
I'm telling you,
somebody who'll be better at that than Vic Schaefer, right? Seriously.
Added bonus, Coach Schaefer is a massive football fan. Like he
used to coach football.
Yep.
Man.
Yeah. He is a guy that you'd want to go fish with. He's a guy that you want to go have a beer with. He's a good old dude. You know what I mean? And look, I watched that entire game. Me and my wife sat down. My wife is like now a women's basketball fan of this team, by the way. Like she's like all into it. And so I sat down and we watched it this afternoon. Texas they looked horrible in the first half. I mean, relatively speaking, horrible. They were down 11, 12 points multiple times to LSU in the first half. Maddie Booker in the first half was 0 for 11. I mean, Texas couldn't hit. I mean, they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And they came out hot in the second half, in the third quarter. But even then, LSU they got it down to like 3. LSU built the lead back up to 10 again. Okay, and I'm thinking, okay, just like Texas earlier in the week, Kentucky came out strong in the second half against Texas and kind of whittled the lead down a little bit. All right, LSU now is taking back over control of the game, but it didn't work that way. I mean, Texas had a lot of heart today. He went with an interesting lineup. If you follow women's basketball, he went with 4 guards and 1 post. So he had both Rory Harmon, who's the longtime point guard that he, feels like is a coach on the floor for him, and Breonna Preston, this freshman from Atlanta. Both point guards were in the game at the same time. And that quicker lineup, I think, helped him defensively get in front of people on in LSU, and LSU's a little surprised by it. And those girls, they just wouldn't be denied. You know how sometimes you just watching a game and you're like, they're not taking any mercy. They're not here to play around. They were just like, we're going. Yeah, I felt like they willed themselves to win today.
That lineup helped them on offense too, Bobby. You could tell in the second half, both point guards seemed like almost every possession they were making an effort to get downhill and either get to the bucket or kick it out to an open shooter. Not necessarily for a 3, but I mean, I saw Madison Booker hit a couple, short corner jumpers with Roy Harmon driving to the bucket. So yeah, that's why he's, if you're talking about the best coaches on campus, I mean, that's a hell of a competition, but he may be number 1. And I Craig Way and I, when we were doing a show together, we had Coach Schaefer on every week during the season. And I love how he'd talk about just how competitive he is. He hates losing. And, he's going into how he breaks down film. And even when you win, like you want to, keep your foot on the gas. He just stops himself mid-sentence. He goes, Y'all, I'm telling you, this is a miserable existence. So yeah, but it's cool to see them they're kind of like Mike White with softball. They're right there on the cusp of breaking through.
Texas football sounds like Texas football right there on the cusp of breaking through as well. You got a lot of sports either already broken through or right on the cusp. That's why CDC is the best in the business. Ain't no doubt about it.
Hey, Rod, this is something for us to talk about a little bit if y'all don't. Jerry and I we had a conversation today and put a video up on Texas football. And we were talking about how Kirby Smart pretty early in his career got Georgia hanging around the rim a little bit, but didn't win it. When did he win his first national championship? Year 7 as a head coach? Or year 5? 7. Well, Sark's going to be year 5 next year. And we've heard through the grapevine that some of these freshmen that Texas has on campus right now are chirping a little bit. Hey, we're gonna do some, just normal freshman stuff. They haven't hit anybody yet. You know what I mean? They haven't got their clock cleaned by an upperclassman on a reverse or something like that. It's just typical. And but I started thinking about it, and look, it's about that time. I mean, Texas has gotten close to the top, but they haven't gotten over the top, right? And Kirby did it in 7 years. Maybe he does it sooner. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't, but it's that time where Texas is starting to stack enough talent where it's not unreasonable to think they might put it together here one of these couple of years.
I mean, Mac did it year 8.
Year 8. Jim Harbaugh was like year 9. Ryan Day just did it. His 6th year for Ryan Day, but as Jim Harbaugh said, he was born on third base, so a little bit longer than it
really is. Georgia was in better shape than Texas was roster.
Yeah, and so was Ohio State was in really good shape, right?
Yeah.
But that's kind of thing too. And give Sark a lot of credit. Texas was not in great shape when Sark got that gig. So Sark's probably had one of the better turnarounds or quicker turnarounds, I should say. But you're right. Now you've been in the Final Four 2 back-to-back years. Longhorn fans now, they won't. I'm not going to say that everybody, but a lot of them won't settle for another Final Four. They want at least they want advancement. They want progress. And for Sark, progress has got to be getting past now that Final Four stage, getting to the championship game. If you get there, you want to win it. But I understand. But I think for Sark now, there's a clear, point of progress for you, and it is past the Final Four. And you're good enough now. I mean, and that's what I love about. Well, we can get these combine invites too. I want to talk about that a little bit. But exactly.
14.
There you go. 14 of them. Georgia had 15. So other than the SEC, only Georgia had more than you. And you lost to Georgia twice. All right. Once in the SEC title game and once in the regular season. So you're right there. And then you lost Ohio State, of course, in the Final Four. And Ohio State had 15, I believe it was.
Yeah, Rod, I think Georgia.
Oh, Georgia had 14.
Same as Texas.
Yeah, Georgia had 14. I apologize.
Yeah, and Ohio State's the only one that had more.
Yeah.
But, I mean, how about all of those guys getting invited? Like, I was like, who's going to get left out? Because you can't have 14 guys go to a combine. You know what I mean? I was just like, NFL doesn't care.
we were talking about
if we want to look under the hood, we're going to ask you to come, and so we can look under the hood, man.
Did they leave somebody out though? Who they leave out? They left out who they leave out?
Benda was it, right?
Benda like Silas Bowden, but Bowden didn't really play enough to get love like that.
Rod, we were talking about snubs earlier this week, and I was like, man, I guess those are the two guys. I guess maybe David Benda, Silas Bowden, maybe a Gavin Holmes, but it's like.
Yeah,
can you really start complaining when you get 14 guys invited to the combine? Like I was happy for me. The fact that you've got 4 offensive linemen at the combine is phenomenal. I mean,
3 defensive linemen too.
I've seen some Texas teams in the past decade plus where I didn't think there were 4 offensive linemen on the roster that could walk and chew gum at the same time. So you got 4 at the combine now. That's the job this staff has done to get that offensive line where it is. It's good for my football soul, Rod.
Yep. No, you know, it's a great point. And matter of fact, I think it's a great point to bring up about because Dan Jeremiah had a tweet. I sent it to you guys. Dan Jeremiah had a tweet recently that caught my attention. He was talking about the number of defensive linemen. Apparently, they're going to be at this combine. And apparently, overall, I believe they had it's going to be a crazy number. They ended up having 41, I believe, combine invites for D tackles. Sorry, D tackles overall invites this year's combine. And there were 25 invited to last year's combine. D tackles overall. Texas got 2 of those, Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins. Texas is kind of developing a bit of a pipeline at that position. The lines of scrimmage, though, Texas started to be well represented now in these NFL drafts on the lines of scrimmage. I think Texas D-line, I don't think it totally fell off. Texas has still been producing some really quality defensive linemen. Maybe not drafted as high as they should have been, but still guys who can play in the league and NFL caliber guys. But offensive line, you're right, Jeff, that had become a bit of a fuster cluck on the 40 acres. And now, I mean, you know, you're putting out year after year guys on the lines of scrimmage. I think that may be that in quarterback, all right, are definitely probably the 2 biggest positional reasons for Texas turnaround is that they figured out skill positions. And, you know, Texas had some decent wide receivers, you know, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Colin Johnson, DBs. Texas had some decent DBs, even when some of the down years. They weren't totally, you know, bereft of talent there. Even at, you know, linebacker, they weren't bereft of talent. Quarterback and O-line, like you said, Jeff, and now I would say D-line too, consistently. That to me has been a game changer. Pass rushers, things that really, really have been mattering for the most part. Those premium positions a lot of the times too with that.
Let me ask you all this. Baron Sorrell. He's a 5 technique, in my opinion. He's just better situated for the NFL than he was at Texas or any college team for that matter. He's a 3-man front 5 technique. I mean, I can see him playing that in my mind in the NFL. Are there any other players like that for Texas that you think actually are more pro-oriented from a standpoint of, hey, do they fit a specific role? Not to say that Baron Sorrell's part of this team wasn't, you know, impactful or very important. I just think that his style of play, run first defender at end in a 3-4 setting is probably more valuable, right? Or more suiting to his strengths. Is there anybody else in Texas that's going to be in this draft that is more suited for the NFL maybe than they are to college? Ooh. Anybody? And do you agree with me on Sorrell?
Yeah, I agree with you on Sorrell, Bobby, because I said the opposite about Charles Omenihu when he came out. I felt like he played in the odd front at Texas, and I felt like he's going to get drafted. If he gets drafted by a 4-3 team, he's more of kind of a strong side odd front defensive end, which is what he's been, and he's, you know, been to a couple Super Bowls and has a ring. Am I crazy for thinking that, Bobby, that it could be Jaden Blue?
No, that's what I've been saying this whole time. I mean, Rod, you and I talked about it. People pay for touchdowns. You know, people will give you a roster spot if you score touchdowns.
It's got to be the right team, right system.
Yes, yeah, it's got to be the Miami Dolphins of the world.
Yep, Kansas City Chiefs of the world. It's got to be the right system. But yeah, the right system, I don't disagree with that at all, because you saw what he did at Texas. He's a matchup nightmare.
Yes,
if he goes out for a pass, he's a matchup nightmare. He's a matchup nightmare if he breaks a tackle at the line of scrimmage too.
Yeah.
Clemson. Think of the Clemson game.
Yep. You're trying to rank
that one tackle.
Mm-hmm. I could see that. I know that's not crazy, Jeff.
If you find, I think it's all about, for some of those guys, especially Blue, like let's assume he's a day 3 type guy, right? It's all guys that are day 3 priority free agents. It's all about finding that coach or that organization that loves you. I mean, one of the main reasons, probably the main reason why Lil Jordan Humphrey's still in the NFL, Sean Payton loves him. You know, brought him to New Orleans as an undrafted free agent. He kept him there, got him to Denver as soon as he got that job. He's still there. That's just one example. But you know, if somebody falls in love with you like that, then you got a chance to stick around in the league for a while. You'll get opportunities to prove yourself.
Matchup, man. Matchup. Hey, other thing there that I was going to say, what about Hayden Connor? I mean, because he is he's the quintessential NFL shield offensive guard. He doesn't move people a whole bunch, but he gets in the way. I mean, because you're not going to move. I mean, people look. You're not going to move a lot of defensive linemen in the NFL. It just ain't happening. And so some teams don't even try with their guards to get. They don't try to find people movers. They try to find pass protectors. Isn't that more of what Hayden Connor is? I'm not saying he should get drafted highly. I'm not saying I think he's going to be an NFL guy that plays for a long time or anything. I just think that he might be also more NFL type guy where he's kind of more of a pass protector than he is anything else. That was the other one that I had.
We're talking about, yeah. I think on Hayden Connor, Bobby, I think when he gets into a camp, see if he can snap. That's what I would do, and just see if he can, max, maybe have some versatility there that could keep him around. But I mean, if we're talking about pass protectors, as good as he was in college, I mean, that sets up nice for Kelvin Banks to walk in and start for somebody and be really good.
Day one, just because he's good he's elite at that.
Yeah,
may not be elite at run blocking yet in the league, because like Bobby said, you can't move D linemen around the league like that. It ain't.
No, it don't work. We want guys that can really move people in the NFL. Good luck, man.
Yeah,
you can move 350 pounds of granite. I mean, this is like, care how big you are.
Mine is going to be, this is a good question. It might be Makuba. I think in the right system, Makuba can be really good. I think it'd be kind of like I said, the right system too. They got to use him in the right way because he's a little undersized. But I think in the right system, Makuba can be really good. Not that he wasn't good at Texas, but I think he'd be a starter in the league.
I think he's going to be.
You know what I mean?
And despite his size, he's got a little bit of size deficiency, Rod.
Well, he's undersized. I agree with that.
Yeah, and you don't notice that. You could watch him play and not think he has a size deficiency, but when you see him in person, you realize
it's shocking.
He's got a little size deficiency.
When they see him at the combine, Jared, when they see him at the combine, Bobby, they're gonna look at him and go, "Whoa!"
Yeah, he's not as big as we thought he was.
Yep, agreed.
But he plays bigger.
He does.
But I'm with you, Rod. I'm totally with you on that. I love Andrew Makuba.
I do too. All right, let's think. I also love Rogue Shop. Our friends over at rogueshop.com. You can reach out to them today. And don't forget, when you look them up over at Rogue Shop, to use the discount code on Texas. That's going to get you a very special discount from my very special friends over at Rogue Shop. Rogueshop.com, bringing real plant medicine back to its roots. They have it all from oils and creams to flour, gummies, and vitamins as well. No matter what you're dealing with, maybe it's just aches and pains from Father Time, or just you're playing days like me, or maybe it's sleep deprivation, maybe it's anxiety. No matter what it is, our friends at rogueshop.com have a variety of different items that can help you deal with a variety of different ailments, no matter what they are. I got someone, a part of the Owen Texas football family, reached out to me and told me that they swear by rogueshop.com. They were having some trouble sleeping, and now because of some of the Rogue Shop items, they are actually sleeping like a baby every night. So check out rogueshop.com. May do the same for you. That's rogueshop.com, and remember to use the discount code there on Texas. All right, let's get to a couple of questions here. I know we got a couple of questions I want to get to here. Here is this one's from Cameron. Thank you, Cameron. What's the word on Rodney Terry? I think we need to change the head coach at basketball. They are underperforming. What are your thoughts, gentlemen? It looks like a lot of the Longhorn Nation feels like the Texas men's basketball team is underachieving, especially when you compare it to all the other sports and where they're currently competing right now. We're talking about teams that are knocking on the door for championships, teams that have already won championships. What are you guys' thoughts about where Rodney Terry has his Texas men's basketball team?
My thing is this. I just wonder, building a roster, because you got Trey Johnson for 1 year. He's one and done. Does Rodney Terry have the wherewithal, and will the funds be available for you to build because my expectation for Texas men's basketball, sorry, it's probably gonna be lower than what some people say. If you're in contention to be a second weekend team, that's a Sweet 16, Elite 8 team, then that's probably where the bar is set. Does RT have the wherewithal and the NIL funds to build that kind of team in the portal? I don't know. If he doesn't, then I think that's where you need to find a coach that year after year can build you that kind of roster. And maybe Bobby, maybe with the right coaching hire, maybe the NIL funds would be available to the right coach.
I think that we'll see. And I do think that this year is at some level make or break for him. I don't think there's Cameron's not saying anything other people haven't said. And I don't think that, if Rodney Terry was given some truth serum or serum, he would probably say, yeah, probably need a win.
Yep.
And so I don't think it's any big surprise that that's the case. The question I have, and Jeff, if he gets to the tournament, first of all, they won their 5th game against Kentucky, almost a do or die yesterday. Had to win that if they wanted to go to the tournament, in my opinion. But they get all this week off, by the way. And then they come back and they got 2 games against South Carolina and Arkansas on the road. And then they've got Georgia, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma. They need to get to 8 wins in conference.
Yep.
They're at 5 right now. So they got 5 more games. And they got to win 3. Okay. Oklahoma and Georgia, Texas will be favored in those games. Period. Mississippi State, South Carolina, Texas probably going to be favored. Arkansas. Arkansas is okay, but they're not great. But to Jeff's point is this. Okay, say they get to the tournament. Is that far enough? Because at what point has Rodney Terry in his tenure thus far at Texas proven that he can go out and build the roster in this day and age that will get Texas to the second weekend, get them to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, or Final 4? I don't know. I don't know. He's proven maybe that he can go get some players, but need some meat with this potato. Yeah. We need some proof here.
The big thing I fault RT for, and again, some of it may be in his control, some of it may not be. You knew you had Trey Johnson for 1 year, a special player, the kind of guy that you can't bank on getting him every year, and you had an opportunity to build a team around him. And I just think, Bobby, looking back at the offseason, I just don't think they did enough. I think they were missing maybe another big. There was another couple pieces I would have liked to have seen them add through the portal. But it didn't happen. And now, you've got the freshman that's pretty much carrying you at this point. So yeah. I like Rodney Terry a lot personally, and this isn't personal, but what kind of roster are you going to build next year if Trey Johnson, Arthur Kaluma, and Tremont Mark are not a part of that? Yeah. So we know Caden Shedrick's gone. You're basically going to be building another one from scratch. So RT's had 2 opportunities to do it with, middling results. What can he do in this offseason? That's my concern.
Yeah. You got to give him credit at some level, Rod and Jeff, for the SEC, the strength of the SEC this year. Maybe they're better if they play in a different conference, but look, we just spent half this podcast talking about how good the coaches are at the University of Texas across a variety of sports.
Yeah.
And you are held to a different level of accountability at Texas. You just are. I don't know. Tom Herman doesn't get fired at other places after going 7-3.
Right.
Just doesn't happen. Right. So that's where it's at right now, in my opinion. We'll see what happens. He's got 5 games left in the regular season, as well as the SEC tournament, and hopefully the NCAA tournament after that. I'm rooting for him. I like the guy personally a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think he's a good person. I think he tries and puts the University of Texas in the right light. I really do believe that.
I mean, I'll compare it to baseball, and I know men's basketball and baseball at Texas; those are sports with two completely different standards, right? But with David Pierce, it got to a point where it just felt like it had plateaued and was starting to level off, and I think that's the point where I guess it's tough for me to tell because there's so much roster turnover in men's basketball year after year. I guess that would be my question for CDC. Did it plateau with them getting to the Elite Eight, and do you feel like it can get back there? If not, then you've got your answer. But if you think Rodney can get it back to that point with a chance to get over the hump, then yeah, let him have another crack at it.
All right, good stuff, guys. I think we're all rooting for Coach Terry. All right, so let's get to I think the final topic I wanted to hear before we get done here is the Pro Football Focus. They have their top 10 returning quarterbacks entering the 2025 season, gentlemen. I'll just give you the list really quickly, and then we can discuss it. Cade Klubnik's at number 1, by the way, on this list. Sam Levitt at number 2. Longhorn fans know both of these quarterbacks pretty well. Carson Beck at number 3. Drew Allar of Penn State at number 4. Yeah, Carson Beck in Miami now. Garrett Nussmeier of LSU at number 5. And Arch Manning, Texas, starting quarterback for the upcoming season at number 6. DJ Lagway at 7. All right, Diego Pavia of Vanderbilt at 8. Nico Iamaleava of Tennessee is at 9. 10 is Kevin Jennings of SMU, and honorable mention is Taylor Green from Arkansas. So Texas will face 3 of these quarterbacks. They'll face the honorable mention, Taylor Green. They're also on this ranking. They'll face DJ Lagway of Florida, and they'll face Diego Pavia of Vanderbilt, who they also have in the top 10. So what do you guys' thoughts? Arch Manning at number 6, too high, too low? I'm sure I screwed up the name of the Tennessee quarterback. I apologize.
Iamaleava.
Iamaleava. Yeah, did I screw it up again? All right. I'm not gonna try again.
Close enough.
Iamaleava. I'm sure I screwed it up. Please go ahead.
I'm fascinated, Rod, by the fact that you rattled off 11 quarterbacks. 6 of them are in the SEC. So
that is true.
That tells me, look, we talked about expectations for Arch. If Arch plays at an all SEC level, then yeah, he's a top 5 to 10 quarterback in the country this year.
For what they do, Pavia is really good, right? Like some of this is fit. Mm-hmm. I think what Florida does, Lagway is darn near perfect. I mean, they try power inside run and throw over the top, and he throws a beautiful deep ball. I mean, really does. I'm anxious to see how Steve Sarkisian utilizes Arch Manning. Like, what is Manning's sweet spot? What does he do as well or better than anybody? Throw the deep ball right now?
Deep ball.
Yeah. So Sark's got to find what Arch does the best. He probably already knows it in his head, right? But he's got to accentuate it to make Texas the best they can be. I will tell you, I don't think Sam Levitt is the second best quarterback. I don't think Cade Klubnik is the best quarterback. Good players. I think Drew Allar at Penn State, of those guys, probably going to be the number 1 pick out of that group. And I know people don't like that because he threw the ball away or he gets a little crazy with it, but he's got the gun. He's got a really strong arm. I don't understand Carson Beck being number 3. I don't know that I would put him in the top 10 at this point. Would y'all? After this year, would you put him in the top 10?
Maybe
last year. I would probably have him lower than 3 for sure.
Yeah, he wouldn't be number 3. No,
I'd have Nussmeier ahead of Carson Beck.
And see, I think Nussmeier is good, but I think he's limited. Good quarterback. I think he's just a little limited. I mean,
Bobby, where are you at on Lenore Sellers? I think we talk about SEC quarterbacks. You're more of a believer in Lenore Sellers than I
am. As athletic as you will see at that position, he's got some Vince Young athleticism to him.
He's elite, no doubt.
Yeah. So I'm not saying, and he was younger. He probably I don't know if he's as accurate as Vince, but he may have a stronger arm than Vince, better release, those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
But man, he plays in a conference where it's hard to get by with athleticism at that position, unless your entire offense is surrounding and geared towards that. But I'm a big, like, I would take Lenore Sellers over Cade Klubnik if I were starting a team. Maybe not for Texas, though. Like, Cade Klubnik is a more of a, and what I mean by that is better thrower at this point, operates it. But look, I'm a big DJ Lagway fan, big Arch Manning fan, big Cade Klubnik fan. I like Drew Alar a lot. Kevin Jennings, for example, for me, I take Kevin Jennings over Garrett Nussmeier. Man, just does more things off schedule.
Yeah.
And I think there's a value in that. I take
that's why Arch, I think, is going to help the offense. Arch can operate off schedule. We haven't had that with Quinn. I love Quinn, but Quinn has no off schedule, off script really ability. He's done it before successfully, but it's not his strength. I think it's actually a strength of Arch. I think Arch is comfortable off script.
Think back at two of the biggest plays in 2 games this year. Texas A&M. Texas was about to punt the ball again in the first quarter or second quarter, whenever it was, and Quinn popped off a 30-yard run.
That was a hell of a play.
Down the right sideline.
Mm-hmm.
Think back to the Arizona State game where he scrambled for a touchdown.
Touchdown, yep.
Okay, to put Texas up by 16.
That was big.
Okay. Now, Texas should never – there's some subsequent plays there that got Arizona State back in the game. But my point being, Rod's right in that you can't really put a number or value on what a quarterback that can move around can give you. And we don't know what that's going to look like because we haven't seen it. And he moves better than Sam Ehlinger. I'm just going to put that out there. Much better mover than Sam, and Sam did a lot with his legs. Different type of offense in some regards, but I think Rod's right. We don't know. We can't really think about it because we haven't seen it. We really haven't seen it.
Yep. And to that point, look at some people in the chat saying Levitt is good. Sam Levitt didn't do a lot with his arm in that game against Texas. He's kept plays alive with his legs. That can show you what a mobile quarterback can do, can move around. So I think you'll get
and if he doesn't, and I'm going to say this, if he doesn't have that run game component with the scatter, he won't have Scatterboo, obviously. He's a different quarterback.
That's true too.
And then the whole offense is him.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, Texas plays differently.
He will have that quarterback, that wide receiver back though.
But Jalen Hurts is a good player. I don't think he's a first rounder.
No, he's an NFL player though. I'm sure. I don't know if he's a first rounder. He's an NFL player.
Yeah, but that you get my point though, Rod. Is like if
change the math.
Sam Levitt becomes the mark man, it's just maybe I'm wrong and he's that good, but he definitely he's more slippery than Cade Klubnik, right? Mm-hmm. Even though Cade Klubnik's really slippery, Levitt is. I was at the Peach Bowl.
He's twitchy. He was twitchy.
Unbelievable.
He was twitchy. Yeah.
Twitchy, and some guys just have a sense for it.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that third eye sitting over here on the right part of his helmet or something.
All right, before we end, I will say one more point though about the quarterbacks. So Texas will face 3 quarterbacks off their list if they are in fact top 10 to 11 quarterbacks. When they face better quarterbacks though, the secondary did give up more explosive pass plays. They gave up 23 explosive pass plays in the first 13 games, guys. They gave up 10 in the final 3 games of the season against better quarterbacks. Basically, once they got into the postseason. So I think that's what you got to look out for. Inexperienced secondary and some of these just better quarterback play overall. Something like that. Jeff, any closing comments about our quarterback discussion that you're at?
I'm on the Nuss bus, but I know Bobby's probably not with me, but I've got to give me a seat close to the front on the Nuss bus with Garrett Nussmeier. He's way too boom or bust for me to buy into him as a stock. But man, when Taylor Green is on and that Bobby Marino offense, it looks really good. But I also saw some games, man, when it goes sideways, it gets away and snowballs in a hurry. So I don't know. In a year where Sam Pittman, it seems like every year Sam Pittman's coaching for his job, you just need Taylor to level that out a little bit, not be so much boom or bust.
I agree. It does seem like every year Sam Pittman's coaching for his job.
He's the new Gus Malzahn. Every year he's on the hot seat.
For real. All right. Good stuff, guys. Appreciate the input. Thank you guys for all the super chats and the questions. We apologize we couldn't get to all of them, but please direct any questions that we may have missed out on to the guys at Coffee and Football in the morning at 8 a.m. There will be a bright and eyed and ready to take all your questions and comments there. Also, we'll have the winning drive tomorrow around 3:15. There'll be myself, Coach Shipley, and CJ Vogel. That'll be at 3:15 to around 4:30 tomorrow. So you can join us as well. We'll talk plenty of Texas sports. All right. Thank you to my man Bobby Burton behind the scenes, because he was actually tweaking the dials today. Thank you to Jeff as well. Thank you to our sponsor, RogueShop.com. Remember, use that discount code on Texas. You get a very special discount from my friends over at RogueShop.com. And for Bobby and for Jeff, until next time, hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em.